it immediately raises another very interesting thing, and that's the language issue. We love the word but in English. We love that word. And yet so often it gets us into trouble. Because actually, especially when people say yes, but, they're actually just saying no. And somehow, I don't know, I talk sometimes about what we call the language of leaders. And one of the things I've noticed with good leaders is that they tend to use the word and more often than they use the word but, and often instead of the word but. So they're actually saying it's not the one or the other, which is what the word but actually implies. It's the one or the other, but it's the one and the other. They can coexist next to each other. And just by creating this possibility of coexistence of different opinions already makes it a lot easier for people to voice their opinions. So that just that small thing already creates more psychological safety than what we can imagine. Language.
And I think it is important to be able to express what you're thinking.
Sure.
Right? And pair it nicely, as you mentioned earlier on, with the curiosity. Yeah. Because at the same time, a key learning for me as a leader at this time was also to not be too quick about my no's. Because sometimes the no's were right and they were probably the best way forward. And sometimes I wished I would have said more often, help me understand what's the purpose behind something.
Yes. Well, this fits exactly also with I sometimes have people who come from an Eastern culture, and in an Eastern culture, it's just not done to say no. So they say yes, they say yes, they say yes, and then they manage to get a burnout. Not weird. Why? It's because they're simply saying yes to everything, whereas we've sort of been taught it's also okay to say no every so now and then. And teaching them how to say no is almost impossible. I mean, it's ingrained in their culture. Mm. As soon as there's a question that starts with a verb, the answer is yes. End of story. So what I really help them with is by not saying no anymore, or not saying yes anymore, but asking questions. Exactly like you said. Help me understand. What's the importance of this job? Help me understand. When must it be done by? Please tell me which other tasks I can drop in order to make time for this. All these kind of questions, they're not saying no.
And in order to do so, don't you need to feel psychologically safe?
Yes. Although some of these things you can even teach people to do these kind of things in psychologically unsafe spaces. I mean, just simply asking questions. If you are the team member and your supervisor comes and drops a job on your table and says, please see to it that this is done by this afternoon, and you can't for various reasons, it might be a very unsafe way of approaching you. And even then, by just asking questions, somebody can get a better result.